What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jeff Cordero. You ever been to the bow shop? You ever been to something like a total archery challenge? You're out shooting with your buddies in your 3D range. You're moving your sight up and down on the slider, not quite hitting where it should. You're getting some left and right misses. You start shooting uphill and downhill shots. Someone asks you if your third axis is set, and you just sit there and think, you're like, no, I don't even know what third axis is. Well, today in this video, I'm going to explain that to you. I'm going to explain what first axis, second axis, and third axis is, what they do, how to adjust them to see if your sight has one or the ability to adjust them, and why they are important. So stay tuned to the length of this whole video, and please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button down below. Support the channel. We're growing. We want to keep growing. I'm going to need your help to do that. All right, so there are three axes on a sight that really matter. I mean, there's really only three of them, and they all matter. Not all sights are going to have a first, second, or third axis adjustment. There are sights out there in the market that have 0 axis adjustments. The bubble is literally just glued into the housing. Those are going to be your cheaper sights. As you start working up on the price chain on those sights, sight manufacturers add more features and more parts and pieces to the sight so you can start adjusting. Usually it starts with second axis, so you can adjust the scope housing, and then it'll have a third axis, and then on the creme de la creme, your top dollar sights, most of your top dollar sights are going to have a first axis adjustment. It is also important that all three of these axis adjustments are independent of each other because they do play off each other, so you want adjustments that are independent from each other so you can set them. And how you would count, you set them as in first axis first, second, second, and third, third. Let's go over what they are, why they matter. So your first axis adjustment, when you put your bow in your bow vise and you get the string plumb, that is how the first thing we do when we set up bows at Barefoot. That's the first thing I do, is once I'm getting ready to put the sight and everything on, I get my string level, I get my arrow perpendicular to the string, put my sight on it, go to get everything set up. Once this is level, this is going to be the part that we're going to comparing everything to, because as you pull back, this string should be level. That's why you were leveling the bubble, is to level the riser of the bow so the string tracks straight. The arrow goes straight. If you have cant either way, the arrow is going to go one way or the other, and you're not going to hit behind the pin, and you're going to wonder why. I'm going to actually put this sight on the bow so we can better explain it to you. But your first axis adjustment, this is a CBE Trek vertical 2-pin. This does have first axis adjustment capability, but it is going to be when you attach this dovetail to the bow, it is going to be these two screws in the back here, and what it is you're getting the slider itself. So as you go up and down on the sliding scale here, the sight tracks vertically straight up and down. That's very important because if you're at 20 yards and you get this thing level, and let's say your string is plumb, but your sight is skewed, obviously this is an exaggeration, the further you go down on this rail and you start going out to, sorry, I'm blocking it, you go all the way down here to like something like 90, whatever. Well, now that pin has not tracked vertically straight up and down with the string. Now the pin is going to be way further off. So in this instance, you'd be shooting and you're going to hit way off to the right or left. Whatever, you're not going to hit behind the pin. So having your first axis adjustment with a slider, getting sliders that have first axis adjustment on them is very important in my opinion, because you want to be accurate through your entire tape range. The further you go out, if this is off by just a little bit, you're gonna start making misses left and right and not know why. So your first axis adjustment is the entire rail to the main string. Your second axis adjustment, this is the one that most sight manufacturers add first to their sight. So your cheaper end sights all the way up through your high dollar sights. This is going to be your second axis adjustment, and that is actually the scope itself. Let's see if I can loosen this up. So the scope itself, how the scope is, you want the scope to be perpendicular, right? Yeah, you want it to be perpendicular to your sight rail that you have already set your first axis on. That's why these are important to set in order, because if you set second axis before you set first axis, if you go back and adjust your first axis, second axis is gonna be out. You're still gonna miss because you're going to be canting the bow to get the bubble to come into the level instead of making sure the bubble is in the level when the bow is level. Your second axis adjustment is how perpendicular your scope housing is to your first axis adjustment. Once you get this set, be in the level, you're gonna be good. If you do not have this set and you are shooting something like a fixed pin or even, you know, a single pin, and this is way off, what you're gonna do is you're gonna try to get your bubble to the level, and what's gonna end up happening is if this is way off and your sight's skewed like this, as you lean the bow to get the bubble level, you're actually leaning the bow. And now the arrow is going to track whichever way the top cam is leaning. So in this instance, you're gonna start missing to my left, your right. And that is gonna be a problem. Again, the further you go out from 20 yards or your shortest distance, the worse and worse and worse it is going to be. So very important to make sure your second axis is set. Your third axis, this is the one that people probably set the least. It took me a couple of years before I said this. I've actually made a video in the past, I'll link it in the description below, on how to set your third axis. But what third axis is, we've gone over the different levels. You have the level of your slider, your rail, you have the level of your scope housing. But what third axis is, let's get this kind of close because it just looks dumb. What third axis is on your sight here, you are level flat. Well, if your sight housing is skewed one way or the other, either open or closed, it's not gonna matter because you're on flat ground. But if you are skewed and you start to go up, you can see the bubble goes to the left. If you start to go down, the bubble is gonna go to the right. What that's gonna do is as you start aiming up and start aiming down for some of these high angles, you're shooting out of a tree stand, you're hunting out west, you're shooting total archery challenge, what ends up happening is your bubble starts moving on either side of the housing. You think you're canting your bow, so you can't, or you torque your bow to get it back, the bubble in the center. What you're actually doing is you're taking your bow out of being perpendicular, out of being straight and level, plumb, and now you're gonna start missing left and right. Depending on which way you're shooting, uphill or downhill, it's gonna be the opposite. So if you're missing to the left shooting uphill, you're gonna miss to the right shooting downhill. That's why it's important to set your third axis. Now, third axis is the one that's really hard for a shop to set up. We can set it up, I can set it up. I usually set it up not at full draw with a static bow at about a 45, 60-degree angle in the bow vise to get it really close. There are other bow shops that have these draw boards where they can draw it back and they can articulate the whole bow and they can set it, because whether you want to believe it or not, doesn't matter what bow you shoot. Once you draw this string back, the riser does have some flex to it. It does have some natural torque. Every bow has it, and you have to account for that when you are setting your third axis. So you can draw it back, you can do it. At full draw, that's going to be better than doing it static, but the ultimate way to do it is to do it as the shooter at full draw. There's tools like the Hamskea third axis tool. These are great. This post, you'd actually put this on the riser. When you draw back, you line these two posts up. I'll show you guys later in the video, like on a plumb surface, whether it's a door jamb, a string hanging from the ceiling, you want to set it that way. But ultimately, the way to do it is to go out and shoot it in. So if you have somewhere where you have 20, 30, 40, 50, obviously the further you go, the more exaggerated and the more finite you can get with it. But if you can shoot somewhere between, I don't know, a 15 and 25-degree angle, you're really gonna learn a lot about your second or your third axis and if it's set or not. So let's get this sight mounted on the bow. Let's get this thing leveled out and show you guys what I'm talking about, show you how to set third axis, and hopefully you can get your sight set. So when you go, you lose less arrows, you hit more things, and you are more accurate as an archer. All right, got our sight installed. Let's go ahead, slide this in. Snug down. Now, I have a couple different tools here. Like I said, this is the Hamskea third axis tool. I've been using this for a while. And this one is the Podium Archer string tool. Been using this again, for a little bit now. I do like it, but let's get this bow level. Not the best vise in the world. Okay, so not concerned with what it looks like right now in the scope housing with the bubble, because that's not the first thing that we're going to level. First thing we need to level, like we mentioned before, is going to be the sight to the dovetail bracket itself. So this is where having another level like this Hamsky third plays in a huge role. Find a flat spot on the rail to attach your level to. So as you can see, we have our bowstring is plumb, and then we go over to our first axis adjustment where we are clamped onto the rail way off. So what we're going to do for our first axis adjustment, it's going to be again where the dovetail attaches to the slider itself. This one has 2 cap head bolts, top and bottom. So typically one of these is going to be slotted, the other one is not. They both might be slotted. It really just depends on your sight. Loosen this, and now you can see the rail itself adjusts separate, independent from the dovetail. So we're going to move this till we get it pretty close to centered. That's good. Lightly snug these down. Double check. Just a tiny bit. Move it just a little. All right, there we go. We're level. Go ahead and snug these down. And now our first axis is level with our string. So now as you slide up and down your slider, it's going to slide directly with the string. So it's going to slide straight up and down vertically, and you're not going to have many of your left to right misses. So, all right, next on tap, we need to set second axis. You can see right here in the bubble, it is shoved way to the right side of the housing, which is not going to be right. Our string is still level, or plumb, excuse me. And on this sight itself, it has a second axis adjustment right here on the very top. CBE does a really good job of labeling these second and third axis. Kind of gives you some hash marks to work off of, but what we're going to do here is we're going to loosen these two, and that's going to give us the ability to adjust this. You can see how far that bubble moves. So that's where we want it, because that would be level. And then based on those lines, it's pretty much in the center. Put the camera down real quick so we can tighten it up. So now that we have second axis all set up, third axis, those are going to be your hash marks on where to go. But on this CBE side itself, the actual screws are underneath right there. Still says third axis, so you can adjust them. But let's show you guys how we set third axis in a vise. Okay, so to set the third axis, there's a couple different ways to do this. Like I said, this is how I do it at the shop to get it really close, because third axis is such an individualized adjustment to the archer. Again, you can set this at full draw. That is going to be the next step up from this. This is probably like step 1. Step 2 would be setting it at full draw. Step 3 would be using the little post on here to get it close at the door jamb. And step 4, the ultimate way to make sure your third axis is set up correctly, is to actually shoot it in. Typically what I like to do is I go from 1 to 4. I don't really mess with the stuff in between. I just kind of get it really close like this, so that way I know I'm not going to have these massive left and right misses when I'm shooting at 30, 40 yards at a 15 to 20 degree down angle. But once you shoot it in, that's what it's going to be, because what you put in torque on a bow, what I put in torque on a bow, it's going to be different. Now, also, when you do go to set this and shoot this in for the first time, make sure you have everything on your bow. Make sure you have your bars. If you're going to be shooting with a quiver, make sure your quiver has arrows in it. Make sure you have everything on it, how you're going to be hunting with it, how you're going to be shooting, because it will make a difference on the tune of the bow and how the bow reacts and flexes with different weight leveraged on different sides of the bow. So do make sure you have that. Okay, now that we have our 3rd gen tool clamped onto the dovetail, it's actually, the bow itself is where I'd like to see it. It is pretty level. Come over here. Yeah, pretty close. So you can see what I'm talking about. We have this clamped right on the dovetail. The bow is level where I'd like to see it, and then you go ahead and look at the sight, and you can see the bubble is shoved way over to the left. So if you're following along on this and you're still confused, 1st axis is your rail to your string. 2nd axis is how perpendicular your scope is to the rail. And your 3rd axis adjustment, this is the one that people get confused on the most, but what it is the relation to how open or closed your sight is as you angle the bow down. If the sight is very closed off, closed as in pushed in towards the riser, when you start to go down with it, the bubble is going to come up because that bubble naturally wants to go to the high spot. If it's way open as you go down and you start to angle down, that bubble is going to shoot to the left side, of the right side of the housing. This one right here, you can see it's a little bit closed. We're going to go underneath. Loosen up the 3rd axis adjustments, and here it is. This is very closed off. The bubble is way to the left side of the housing. This is very open. The bubble is shoved way to the right side of the housing. So you can see as you go up and down, you articulate this, it's going to move massively. So we are going to move this and get the bubble centered. You guys can see we are level here, and now we are level in our scope housing. As we articulate this bow from this level position with all 3 of our axes set, 1st and 2nd probably matter the most on flat ground. 3rd axis does kind of matter, but it really doesn't. So if you're shooting indoor, 3rd axis isn't like, I really don't set it. I just kind of put the marks hashed in the center, or set it up like this in the vise, because I'm not shooting angles when you're shooting 20 yards. But as you go through and angle the bow down to make these downhill shots, you're still level, and then vice versa. If you were to angle the bow up, your bubble still in the center, it's going to hit behind. Everyone always says, doesn't matter what video you watch, you draw back, you anchor, you level, you put the pin on the target, execute the shot. So the bubble is in everybody's steps on how to shoot a bow. If you want to see a video on how to shoot a bow, drop a comment down below. If you are new to archery, I understand the 2nd, 3rd axis and adjusting your own stuff could be a little bit on the more technical side, a little bit on the next level side. So if it is something you're not comfortable with, go to your local bow shop, come see us down at Barefoot Archery in Charlotte, and we will get these set up for you. Like I said, we can roughly set up the 3rd axis. It's a really good starting spot, but ultimately for you, you're gonna have to shoot it. So I hope you guys liked the video today. If you did, hit that like button down below. Again, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see more tech videos like this on how to make adjustments, how to do things to your bow if you were the at-home bow tech, drop a comment down below. Let me know what videos you want to see. Let me know what stuff you guys want to learn, and we will make videos. We'll pump out the content for you, and we will get you working on your own equipment and feeling confident in doing it. Thanks for watching this video, guys.